I'm making a 3D game about pickpocketing in Unity. In the game, you play as a robber who's roaming the streets trying to steal money from civilians. To steal the money, the player has to time their steals by clicking the steal button while the slider is within the green area. If they press the steal button in the green area, they will get the money. If they press it outside the green area, the player will be caught and arrested by the police. A quick recap of what happened in the previous video, I added 3 new features. I added the police officer who will arrest the player if they're caught stealing. I added cars into the game to make it feel more alive, and I added a main menu. Now, let me tell you what happened next in this third video in this devlog series. So the first thing I thought about adding is giving the player a purpose. So I need to give the player a reason for stealing from the civilians. So I thought, why don't I give the player some goals? So that's what I added first. I added the amount of money the player has to steal, I added how long they have to steal it for, and the multiplier reward they're gonna get for stealing the money. And later on in the development of the game, I'm going to give descriptions of all these things that the player is stealing. For example, they might be stealing for their rent, or they might be stealing for their daughter's school fees. But right now there's no description, and that's not what I'm going to be working on in this video. The next thing I did was actually give the UI text some code. So I actually made the timer decrease in time and added to the goal updating. Next, I added the multiplier timer text. So basically, once you steal the correct amount of money, we want to give the player a multiplier. So they get a multiplied amount of money for about 30, I'm thinking 10 to 30 seconds, so that they can get a reward for actually reaching this goal. So now I'm done with all this coding. Now we can see that once I steal from all these civilians, we get our goal actually increases. So once we reach this goal, I want this multiplier UI to actually update and show our player that they've reached the goal and get the multiplier on the screen. After that, I did a little bit more coding, and now the multiplier timer decreases as time goes on. But right now, this multiplier timer doesn't actually do anything. So I added some more code, and now you actually get more money from stealing while in this multiplier phase of the game. The next thing I need to add is stakes. If you don't actually reach this goal, you didn't complete the mission, so you didn't maybe pay for the school fees, and that's illegal. So the game is going to end if you don't reach this goal in the certain amount of time given. So now I actually need to add some indications that you've activated the multiplier or that you missed the goal. So I put this into Unity as the UI text, and now they show up if you reached the goal or if you did not. Now I actually need to create different missions, because right now there's only one mission that keeps repeating over and over. So I have to create a goal generator. So I did some mathematics to calculate the time, and try to make sure that everything can correlate so that there's no impossible mission. And I did some testing, and now we have some variations in missions. So we have some long missions where you have to collect a lot of money in a long amount of time, or we can have short missions where you just collect a little bit of money but you're also given less time. Now, I also want to add variation to the multipliers. We don't want to only have 3 times as a multiplier. We want to have maybe 2.7 or 2 or 3.3, just a different mix to give the game some variety. So that's what I went ahead and added next, and now we have variety to our multipliers. So I did all this coding and added all these features into the game. Let me go ahead and test it. So I want to see if once we actually reach the goal, we get the multiplier activated, and if we don't reach it, the goal is actually missed. So I ran into this one problem while adding these multipliers into the game, and I noticed if you press on like a pause button or if you press on the steal button, the player kind of swipes because there's a small amount of movement that actually indicates that the player wants to swipe, which is something I don't want to do. So I just added a little cooldown period, so after you press one of these buttons, the game isn't going to actually detect if there's a swipe for like a short 0.1 seconds, then we get right back into swiping. Another thing I kind of thought of while working on this main project of adding these multipliers is what happens if we actually bump into a civilian. So I don't want the player to bump into the civilian, because that kind of makes the game like, stop. We kind of just walk into the civilian, and kind of the game just almost stops moving. There's no more progression that can happen if we're stuck into a civilian. So there's going to be a consequence for bumping into a civilian, and that's losing money, because that's the worst thing you can do, lose money. The next thing, and the hardest thing that took me so much time, was changing the green area, because right now the green area is the same size, but I wanted to be progressively getting smaller, and this took so long. I literally was watching YouTube videos, doing all kinds of maths, ratios, and all these kind of things, and that's when I realized the math from high school is actually useful. So I started, implementing all the things that I learned. Shout out to all my math teachers back in high school. And I started, trying to do this math, and eventually it came through. We have different sizes in the green area. This took me about, 3 to 5 hours to come up with this calculation, so I kept breaking the code, but eventually it came through. And here's the different sizes. But right now it's just randomly going to different sizes because that's just what I wanted to test. But now I'm going to make it progressively smaller. So each time you steal from a civilian, the green area gets slightly smaller, as the game progresses. So the last thing I needed to edit from this game is I don't want when the player is stealing money for a goal to affect the player's actual money. So I just made the two independent from each other, so that the player only gets money for themselves during the multiplier phase. This is so it feels like you're almost stealing for a purpose, and then you're stealing for your extracurriculars during the multiplier activity phase, because these are going to be bills that the player has to pay. So they might have to, like I gave examples for, steal for their children's school fees, steal for car rent, and this is the player's only job, robbing. So I just did that, and now they're independent from each other. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please smash that like button. It really does help the channel and increases the probability of the video getting shared to other people who are interested in such videos. And subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next devlog. Or I'm going to be adding some more variety into the game. That the buildings are the same, the civilians are kind of getting repetitive, and the cars are also the same. So I'm going to try to edit that soon. So I'm going to see you in the next one. Peace.